Businessman turned spy. We are the Spy-Fi guys, and this is the Courier. Hello and welcome back to the Spy-Fi guys, where we cover spy fact, spy fiction, and everything in between. I'm Zach.
And I'm Christian.
And today we have the 2020 Benedict Cumberbatch vehicle, the Courier.
Zach, I thought we were done with the 60s.
I thought so too, but the Spy Museum gave us a nice preview, so we're recording it now. And before anyone asks, no, this is not a Fallout New Vegas movie. I was disappointed too. Those of you who played it will know what I'm talking about.
But this is a film starring Benedict Cumberbatch, and it is set during the 1960s about one of the biggest spies from the Soviet Union that the West turned, whose name is Oleg. Like, pretty much, I could think of like 3 or 4 different Olegs who were traitors to either the Soviet Union or Russia. So I was like, all right, maybe KGB should just not hire anyone named Oleg.
Well, I had heard of Oleg Penkovsky, but I didn't remember much in the way of details about his life before seeing the movie, which I think helped.
But with that, do we want to get into it?
Yes, so here is the IMDb tagline. Cold War spy Greville Wynne and his Russian source try to put an end to the Cuban Missile Crisis.
The Cuban Missile Crisis?
That's not exactly accurate.
We just can't escape the Cuban Missile Crisis, can we?
I know, it was a big part of the 60s. And I will say, though, that even though this is set in the 60s, it doesn't feel very swinging.
I mean, the swinging 60s really didn't hit till the later part of the decade.
Ah, there you go. But all right, let's get started here. It is based on true events this time, not on a true story.
And we open with some text about the Cold War, imminent destruction, the usual.
The usual stuff, yeah. There's enough nuclear weapons to destroy the world 5 times over or whatever. And the beginning is Khrushchev shit-talking the United States in the Soviet Parliament.
I couldn't remember if this was like a famous speech or not.
That's something I wanted to mention. So in the speech here, he says, "We will bury you." Now, I know that's his famous line, and I know that he was famous for saying it, but I don't remember when he said it. I seem to remember that he said it. I thought he said it at the UN, not here.
It could be. I mean, it also could have been like a preview for his speech. He's like, oh, people really like that line. I'll use it again, and I'll use it in front of the world.
Well, what's funny that you say that is because, have you seen The Death of Stalin?
I have not. That's on my list to watch. I need to watch it.
It's a really good movie. Khrushchev is played by Steve Buscemi in it.
Oh, well, that's just weird.
I know, right? But in like his moment of triumph over a political rival, without giving anything away, he says, "We will bury you." So I'm like, maybe he kept using that line, or maybe a screenwriter is like, "Oh, people, we know this, so this is gonna be like his catchphrase."
Probably. While Khrushchev is making his big speech, we're panning across different men of the speech. Well, you don't even see their faces. You're just panning neck down, just seeing everyone's suit and tie, and it stops on a man with a red tie and a tie clip.
And this is Oleg Penkovsky.
Yes. And so we got to hear a scene of him looking at technical drawings in his office. He's standing across from the U.S. Embassy. He sees 2 American tourists, tails them for a little bit. Here's where they're going to be later that night. And so in an underground tunnel near, I think they said they were going to go to a concert. So he finds the 2 Americans. He does the classic, "Oh, could I trouble you for a light?" Gives them the note, tells them to go to the embassy, give it only to the deputy chief of mission. Don't go back to your hotel. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Yeah,
that was crazy. That was crazy.
If you need to get something to the American embassy and you don't want to be caught, what else are you going to do? That's a pretty good idea.
But if you're the American in that situation, I would be like, I am not involved.
Well, that's what one of the guys did. He's like, you don't do this. But the other guy is like, all right, I'll take it. So we would be those 2 Americans then. If you were there, I would be like, okay, I'm doing this and I'm going straight there. And you would be the guy just standing there like, what? No, leave me out of this.
That is 100% correct. I have seen Locked Up Abroad. That's not happening to me. Though on the other hand, if you are on a study abroad program in Russia during the Cold War, you must have an adventurous spirit in the first place.
Yeah. We next cut to London, MI6 headquarters.
Yeah, and we meet Emily, who is literally a head turner. Did you notice that?
I did not notice that.
And she tells us that Oleg Penkovsky is the man, the equivalent of a walk-in.
Yeah.
He doesn't literally walk in, but he offers his service.
And she's meeting with 2 MI6 officials. And the reason she's doing this is because apparently there was a disaster with Popov because as a result of that, CIA doesn't have any people on the ground in Moscow, so they need MI6 help.
That's right.
As you were saying, the man is identified as Oleg Vladimirovich Penkovsky, codenamed Ironbark, and I like the way he did it. In the packet, he sent them a photo that only they would have, and he cut out his head so that they could basically identify it from there.
Yeah, which is interesting because I think we've seen other spy movies or shows or real life stories where the spy never identifies themselves. Because the more people on the other end who know who he is, that's risky. Like, 'cause there's all these traitors.
True, but and I guess the trade-off is that they needed to know who he is. Well, he didn't specifically identify himself there. He gave enough identifying markers that they could identify him.
And I think he needed their help with getting the info out. He didn't have like a whole plan in mind, unlike some of these other people.
Right. And he also needed them, if they knew who he was, then they know he's for real and that everything he's telling them is real.
Right.
And he also, it included with the packet, so he sent some, a note, but also a like men's catalog of like different tie clips and circled one of them.
That's like the signal, yeah.
Yeah.
So they mentioned also that Penkovsky's GRU, which I don't remember what that meant.
It's Army intelligence, if I recall.
Okay. They come up with this plan where they're going to use a businessman rather than an embassy worker because businessmen can travel back and forth and won't be suspected. Though I guess once they use one, then all future businessmen will be suspected. But that's just the way it works, I suppose.
Oh, apparently GRU is not specifically army, but just like military intelligence for the Russians or the Soviets at that time.
Okay.
James is like, I think I know someone who might work with that. And we cut to a golf game, which reminded me of Goldfinger.
Of course it does.
Well, because it's almost the same like setup shot where it's like you see the hole and you see, the golf putt coming towards it and it just veers off at the end.
Oh, you have a much more specific memory of Goldfinger than I do. I just remember they played golf.
But it also looks like it's the same golf club from Goldfinger, Stoke Poges.
Have I told you that joke already where it's do you expect me to putt? No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to drive. Get it? It's all golf humor for you.
I get it. Anyway, so we meet Greville Wynne, who's played by Benedict Cumberbatch.
Yeah, and he's great. He's like bantering with his wife, bantering with his kid.
I like the banter between him and the wife.
Yeah, I like when he's like, sure, we'll spend the money. The kid didn't want to go to university anyway, right, kid? And the kid's like, that's right. That was great.
He gets a call at home, and it's James Dovey from the Board of Trade, who is James from I don't know what his actual name was, but I've just called him James.
Mm-hmm.
But he's from MI6. So he goes and has a drink with James and Helen. I love how we both, even though this is an audio medium, we both did some figure air quotes there.
Well, it's just weird because in only one scene is she Emily. The whole rest of the movie, she's Helen.
Have her down as Emily for the rest of the time.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, by the way, what do you think about the name Helen?
I have no strong feelings.
There's some names that just irrationally annoy me, and Helen is one of them.
Why?
I don't know why. It's weird. Okay, I think maybe it was reading the Iliad in middle school.
Oh, when they're Helen like, of Troy.
Most beautiful woman in the world is named Helen. It's just weird. It's like the most beautiful man in the world was named
Zach.
Yeah, that's weird,
right? No one would
right?
expect that at all.
Exactly. Also, I have an Aunt Helen, and although she's perfectly nice, no offense to her, she's the only other Helen I've ever met in real life.
Okay. Now that we've got on the diatribe of Zach's, hatred of Helens.
I didn't say hatred, I said irrational annoyance.
Tomato. Anyway, so they go to have a drink at a bar, and they do, again, my pet peeve, talking about classified stuff in a public place.
Oh, sure. And they do that a lot in this movie.
But before they get to that, they ask him about his job. Where have you traveled? Oh, have you, you've done Eastern Europe. Have you gone to the USSR? Oh, not yet. And they say, well, you should consider it. It would be a great service to your country. And I credit Greville here, because as soon as they say that, he picks up on it immediately. Wait, I'm sorry, what?
Yeah, he's not slow.
Yeah. So he puts together, and he's like, I'm just a salesman. I'm not a spy. Which, of course, made me think of, I'm just an analyst.
Yeah, or any number of other things. Yeah. I can't be involved with you, Tom Cruise. I'm just an ordinary car mechanic from Texas or whatever.
She was from Boston.
Whatever.
But I like how he's like all excited about the fact that he's like having a lunch with spies.
Mm-hmm.
They tell him that you don't have to do anything dodgy or illegal. Just, do your normal thing.
Yeah, do business as usual.
They tell him, all right, well, when you're there, wear this tie pin.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to say you don't know anything because you literally know nothing.
Right.
So he tells his wife that he's going to go overseas to the USSR, and she like makes a joke, stay out of the gulag.
Yeah. I mean, I would have said the same thing if someone I knew was going to the Soviet Union. Meanwhile, Oleg has this meeting with a bunch of other Soviet officials in like an industrial warehouse or something.
Yeah, what was with that?
Okay, so this movie reminded me, do you remember the movie Jack Slate?
No.
Maybe I don't remember the title correctly, but it's a Polish guy who has like a machine that lets him write back, and he's also spying. And
No.
we saw it with the Spy Museum, but then I looked it up on IMDb and I couldn't find it, so maybe I'm not remembering the name correctly. But anyway, I remember there's a part just like this where an enemy spy gets found out, he gets shot in the head, just like Popov does, spoiler alert,
Okay.
and then he gets incinerated, like they throw his body in an incinerator.
Okay, was that Popov?
In this movie, yes.
Okay, I just remember there was like they mentioned Popov, but I didn't know that was Popov, and they were shooting him in a.
Maybe they didn't say his name. I just kind of put two and two together.
I remember that they mentioned Popov. Sorry, I'm derailing your point.
I was just waiting for him to get incinerated, and then he didn't. So I think the movie might have been different because the one I'm thinking of, the mystery movie that's name I don't remember, it took place in Poland, and everyone was Polish.
Oh,
So,
I vaguely recall this movie that you're thinking of, but I do not remember what it was called.
You're never
Jack
gonna
Strong?
find it. Jack Strong? Like physically strong?
Yeah.
Okay, that was it then.
Based on the true story of Ryszard Kulinski, a Polish army colonel who spied for the CIA during the height of the Cold War. There it is.
There you go. So it's similar.
Yeah.
But Popov was probably not in it.
Where were we before we got a little derailed there again?
Popov dies. That's what we're at.
Is that actually Popov there?
Oh, I don't know. Someone dies.
The point is, they're trying to intimidate all the other people.
And it shows that if you get caught spying, you die.
So Greville arrives in Moscow. He does a little bit of the sightseeing. He drives past, sees the Kremlin.
Yeah, there's a nice crane shot of him walking along the water. That looked really good.
I did like that shot of the water. So, in one of our previous episodes, I made a joke about how pretty much every time you see a generic European city, it's Prague. Guess where this was filmed?
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
He goes and has the meeting with the Soviet department that Oleg works for. He meets Oleg, and Oleg notices his tie clip.
Mm-hmm.
So Oleg finds him after the pitch, invites him to lunch. How do you go overseas? But what about the politics of it? And Greville basically says, he stays out of the politics. Everyone needs, materials, and I can supply them.
That's right. And they say later, the only thing Greville cares about is making money. Typical capitalist. So they're like setting that up. But then they go out on the town together.
And to go to the ballet, the Russian ballet. Very famous, very wonderful. There's a whole big deal because Khrushchev is in his box. They show like everyone like looking to him. Like I remember, do they all stand?
No, they don't stand. They just look at him, which I thought was weird. I was like expecting them to stand. I didn't realize that Khrushchev in his box was like a thing.
No, it's just the fact that he was there. I think being a world leader, and for Greville to see him just there, I think is a big deal for him. Also, like I was like a little annoyed. It's like, all right, so they build up this ballet and then they don't show it. All you see is just their faces.
I mean, come on.
I don't know. Anyways, after the ballet, they're walking back. Oleg compliments Greville on his tie clip, and he's like, "Oh, it was a gift from a friend." Is that? Oh, was that friend American? And so Oleg reveals that he knows that the Americans sent him, and Greville says, "So what happens now?" It's like, "Well, just go home, invite Oleg back to the UK with a trade delegation." He's like, "Oh, your country will be okay with it?" "Oh, yes, no, I'm supposed to do this sort of thing and steal your secrets, basically."
Nice.
And he also tells Greville to call him Alex. And so in my notes, I just have him as Alex the rest of the time.
Yeah, because he does refer to him as Alex a lot in actual dialogue.
Mm-hmm. I'm trying to think, is that the Russian equivalent of Alex, Oleg? Or is that like it's not his middle name, because it was, what was it, Vladimirovich.
He's probably like, I need a nickname that an American or British person, can pronounce. Yeah, everyone knows how to say Alex.
Greville goes home, and the delegation tours some facilities where some of Alex's fellow Soviets like blatantly steal some stuff.
Oh, I didn't notice them stealing stuff.
He also takes them out to the West End.
And they play Let's Twist Again by Chubby Checker. This is my favorite part of the movie.
What?
Yeah.
I mean,
was great.
it's fun, yeah. But also, like, as they're like seeing the West End and all of the bright lights, one of the Russians comments on like the Wecker decadence and saying this is why they're weak. Greville seems to head home.
Yes, with
Alex
secret
also
meeting.
pretends to go to his room, but instead goes to a different room where Greville comes and gets him from there, and they go to another place to meet the spies.
Yes, so they have a secret meeting with the spies.
Alex said he's scared of Khrushchev because Khrushchev wants a confrontation with America. He says the new edition of Military Thought, which I assume is like some sort of magazine or things that's sent out in the Soviet Union.
Mm-hmm.
But before he does anything, Alex wants assurances that he can defect with his family. And he's like, okay, well, I'll remain in place and provide information, but that information needs to be used as a tool to bring peace, not a weapon.
Yeah, he wants to avoid nuclear war. He doesn't want to hurt the Soviet Union.
Yeah. He also reveals that America's nuke capability is superior to the USSR's. They don't yet have first strike capability.
That's right.
Alex also requests that Greville continues to be his contact, which Greville does not like this idea. He's like, oh, he thinks about his family. Do either of you have that? I was like, well, of course, no, you couldn't tell me such a personal detail. And then Emily, sensing this, like, goes on the full offensive with, like, the guilt trip.
Yeah, I wonder if she's Jewish. I haven't seen a guilt trip that strong since this side of what, like Munich?
Oh, yeah, but she basically tells him that the 4-minute warning that they have, if a nuke is coming, is useless to him.
Yeah, I don't know why she needed to go that low.
She was sensing good intel officer is going to be able to sense those weaknesses and sense, all right, you're worried about your family? Here's what I can say that'll make you turn that worry about your family into something I can use.
Yeah, when the button is pushed, there's no running away. It occurs to me that it must have sucked to live during the Cold War in a country like Denmark or like or like Syria, where if there's a nuclear war, you won't even have voted for one of the guys to like make the decision about that. Your fate is entirely dependent on somebody else's decision.
Yeah, no, that's a fair observation. Anyway, so we go back to Greville, who's answering the door at his house. It's Alex. And there's a good scene here where the kid like asks if the Russians really hate us. And Alex has a really good response of like, your politicians hate our politicians and vice versa. But people, me and your father, you know, we don't hate each other, and we're just two people who can work together. And maybe it starts from there. I was like, wow, that's pretty good.
Yeah, he knows just what to say. It's almost like he had it ready. There's a Sting in the Police song with a similar idea in that.
Yeah, and so Alex convinces Greville to be the courier. He says that you can't tell Sheila, you'll be fine, you'll be safe. Or if you're caught, you might be sent away to a prison for a few years, whereas if I'm caught, I'll be executed. Willing to put my hands, your life in your hands like that shows you how confident I am.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Greville says, I've given Sheila reason not to trust me in the past.
Oh, right, yeah.
So I was like, ooh, that's a twist.
And so next we get a scene of Alex, James, and Emily teaching Greville tradecraft, basically. So as this is going on, we see sort of like, there's a montage of Greville and Alex meeting in the USSR and Moscow, handing off information. It was good. I like this.
There's a part where Oleg uses these elevators that are moving constantly. Do you remember this?
I don't know.
It's very brief, but an elevator going up and an elevator going down, and there's like a hand railing. It looks like something out of the Star Trek engineering room, but they're in continuous motion.
Yeah.
It's like an escalator, so that's like timing his step on. I've never seen something like that before.
I have to rewatch it and look for that.
Yeah.
But Greville's only thing that that if anything happens to him, he wants to make sure that his family is provided for.
Yes.
Back at home after one of his trips, Greville and his wife, they kiss and then they just go at it.
Yeah.
She's like, "What got into you?" I was like, "Oh, I missed you." I was like, "Oh, you didn't miss me any of the other times?"
That's a good follow-up question. Yeah. But I think it's because his brush with death has like made him feel more alive.
Yeah. Next, we go to Langley, and probably the only time in a movie we've seen where we go to Langley and we don't get the seal and the stars at all, ever.
Maybe they hadn't added them yet.
You're probably right. Huh, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, I liked during this various montage here, where it shows the tables in the CIA basement getting larger and larger and larger as he gives them more info. That was a neat idea.
Yeah.
We also get a bunch of speeches. They say the Tsar Bomba has been detonated, a 50 megaton bomb, which is still, I believe, the largest bomb ever detonated.
And Emily, back at Langley, she's meeting with one of her superiors. and he's showing her all the stuff that they've gotten from Alex. And of course, he insults the Brits, saying it almost makes it worth it to have to work with those, stuck-up Brits.
Those damn Jerrys or something. I don't know. Something anti-British.
But she says basically, they're nice guys, and basically you just got to make them think that they're in charge.
That's so great. And then she says something like, "Oh wow, I'm learning so much from you." That was really funny.
But yeah, so Greville watches on TV as the Berlin Wall goes up. And his wife's asking, is he sure it's still safe to go there? He downplays it, and then also insults her, saying, "Just let me run my business how I want to."
Yeah, he's getting a little bit shorter with his wife, and then definitely later with his kid. But I do like when he was like, the Berlin Wall is in Berlin. I'm going to Moscow.
Very far away.
Yeah, like they don't have anything to do with one another.
During this montage, Greville is like working out more. Like we first see him like struggling to do like 2 push-ups, and then later his wife passes by. He's doing a bunch of sit-ups.
He does finger push-ups at one point, I think.
Does he really? I missed that. That's impressive. I've had to do some of those, and they're terrible. He continues to go to Moscow, and the stress is starting to get to him. Like he pukes on a plane at one point. They go on a holiday camping trip. When I say they, I mean Greville and his family. But his son, Andrew, forgets the raincoats, and he has a full-on meltdown.
Well, I wouldn't say a meltdown, but he yells at him. He gets mad. I think it was funny that apparently British people drive to like a trailer park, put a tent there, and just like hang out there.
Well, it didn't look like a trailer park.
Within like no, not a trailer park. It's the equivalent of one.
It was like a campsite. It was
a campsite. Yeah, but it was funny that there's like another family within like a stone's throw of them.
I mean, when was the last time you got to camping?
Never.
Okay, no, this is like how it is. It's not just a British thing. You go to Shenandoah, you get a plot. There'll be someone who's right next door.
It didn't look like the great outdoors to me. It looked like suburbia.
No, that looked outdoorsy enough. They're also not like extremely well off, so this is probably what they can do for a nice holiday.
Yeah, that's fine. So the point is, he's starting to crack up a little bit.
Yeah, and then like around the campfire, his wife grills him.
And then later, the wives fail the Bechdel test. His wife and one of her friends.
So the excuse that Greville gives is that his business is hitting a rough patch. And that's why he's getting all stressed. But yeah, like you said, the wife, Sheila, talks to one of her friends. Like she starts suspecting that Greville might be having an affair again. He did it once before. And so his wife asks him to stop going to Moscow. And
it also reminded me of Parmanu. I'm sure there are other movies we've done too, where the spy...
Oh, you always talk about this. This is like... So my pet peeve is the talking about classified intel in like public locations. One of yours is the nagging wife trope.
Yeah, that wasn't great, and it actually gets worse here, but I was thinking more that you have the spy, and he does the spy stuff, and then his wife thinks he has an affair.
Oh, that's what you were going for. Okay.
Yeah. We don't get that many nagging wives too much, I don't think.
You've talked about it a few times.
Yeah. But yeah, she's like, stop going to Moscow, and he's like, I do what I want.
Back in Moscow on one of his trips, and so on a walk together, Greville asks Alex when he might be ready to defect. And he tells Greville that not yet, but it's like, if you look at what's going on here, sure, the city, Moscow, everything in here is fine. Go up further out into places where Alex is from, and there's a lot of suffering and everything. And he talks about when he does defect, he wants to bring his family to Montana, be a cowboy, and do that. And it's reminded me of what's his face, the first officer from Red October, who wanted to move Montana, right?
That's right. What is it with Montana and Russians? The cowboys.
They like the great outdoors.
Or I wonder, and this is just a personal theory, is the great open spaces as opposed to like the shut-in, very narrow life.
I mean, no, that's probably exactly what it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Next, we go to an analyst. Looks at the report. We have no idea what's in it, but we don't find out until like a scene later. I like this. He makes a chalk mark on a pole very sneakily to tell his contact that he wants to set up a meet. And he speaks to who we find out is a KGB agent. And he says that he's been seeing a lot of new intel coming from the Soviet section.
Yeah, this guy looked like Steve Buscemi for a second, but then it turned out it wasn't.
Yeah. So he is a mole within, presumably, the CIA.
Mm-hmm.
And he says that I don't actually have access to all this stuff. It's all above his clearance. But it doesn't sound like this is coming from intercepts. It's coming from a source.
That's right.
So now the KGB is getting suspicious. Next, we go to a meeting that Khrushchev is having.
Yeah, where he's just talking about Cuba, right?
Right. And then I had to think about, wait, what's our timeline here? Where are we? And is this post Cuban Missile Crisis or no? And of course, we find out very soon after, oh, it's before. Right after that, we go to the CIA, where Emily is bringing her superiors the intel about Cuba, and they don't
Yeah.
believe it, and like Emily begs them to take it seriously. When Greville gets back to his hotel, he notices that is very meticulously placed. So he has like a dictionary, notebooks, I forget what else, like a pens. They're all very placed in straight lines.
Uh-huh.
But his dictionary is upside down.
Oh, I don't think I realized that. I just was like, why is he staring at his dictionary?
That's good. Yeah, I mean, it's just like, remember Spy Museum,
Yeah, I
Old
remember the
Spy
Spy
Museum
Museum. I
had this
remember.
whole, well, for our audience who may have not experienced this,
Okay.
they had this whole interactive, it was almost like an escape room in a way, which was called Operation Spy,
Hmm.
where you go through different things. For example, you'd have to like filter out a transmission to get it to be clear. But one of the most fun things is when you have to case a room. You have to search an entire room, and then you have to make sure everything's placed back in exactly where it was before. And there would be a comparison later, like they would use a photo of where it was and and before and after to show how much percentage of stuff was moved.
The photos actually show very specific places where you do it wrong.
Yep.
It isn't just like, yeah, you did okay, or no, you didn't do okay. Like, they don't just tell you.
It was like
And
it was percentages, yeah.
yeah, and no group I've ever done it with has actually done it well.
Feel like we did it okay.
Mm,
But if Greville had been there, if it was Greville's room we were searching, he would have noticed because I'm sure one of us would have put something upside down.
yeah, it's harder to do than it looks, as it turns out.
Yeah. Next, we go to the KGB, who comes to see Alex and tells him that they're starting to suspect Greville.
That's right. And Oleg says, you can trust me.
Oh
He's
yes.
fine. All he cares about is making money.
Oh yeah, that's where they say that. Yes.
Yes.
So Greville goes to the British embassy. Apparently, this is one of his dead drops. It's an interesting place to have a dead drop.
Is the bathroom?
Yeah, as a bathroom, and it's like hollowed out, but look like a WD-40 can or something.
It seemed
No.
a little bit obvious to me.
Really? I mean, okay. Are you really going to look for that in the British embassy, in the bathroom of the British embassy?
Yeah, it's probably only because I was looking for something unusual that I would think to look there.
Yeah, but I think we have the burden of, all right, we've seen too many spy movies, so we know what we would think to look for.
Absolutely.
The CIA talks about getting a U-2 in the air, which give me flashbacks, of course, to Bridge of Spies, and of course, it's the Kennedy
13
one.
days.
13 days, thank you.
It's funny you mention that. This is very similar to 13 Days and Bridge of Spies.
Yeah.
But also, and this is the second time in 2 weeks I'm going to bring this up, is Rogue One.
Okay, all right.
Because in the beginning of 13 Days, they're like, here are the pictures. And you would never even think, there's a whole story about how they get the pictures.
That is a fair comparison. All right,
Yeah.
I'm not going to...
And this is that story.
But I liked how they said, there's too much cloud cover to get a U-2 up in the air until October. It's like, oh yeah, so we're in 1962 now.
Well, I thought they were going to be like, okay, we can't get photos until October, so let's figure out a workaround. But nope, they just wait until October.
Well, I guess we don't really know what time period this is yet. Like, we don't know how long October is until then. So maybe it was just like September, and then next month is October.
Wake me up when September ends. Yeah, some dates would have been pretty helpful for getting all that straight.
So Greville meets again with James and Emily, tells them about his room being searched.
Yeah.
James wants to pull Greville out, and Emily wants to keep him in play. The CIA, basically, in the scene before, said that Emily is their only source of intel about this.
It's the classic problem of, this is like a John le Carre thing. The higher ups need more info, but the risk is getting worse. So which is more important? It's not going to be their lives. Spoiler alert.
So Greville is worried about Alex, though, because he realizes if they're searching me, they're going to get to him.
Yep.
And James makes the point of, oh, well, if he's still coming here for the UK trade summit, right? Well, if they were suspecting him, they wouldn't allow him to travel. So as long as he comes, he's not in suspicion. How would
Under
I phrase
suspicion.
that? Not under suspicion. Thank you. Mm-hmm. James tells Greville, you're done. Don't worry about Cuba. Just, you can leave it all behind. And Emily is pissed at James for pulling Greville out.
Mm-hmm.
And then Alex, at his office, has what looks like a heart attack.
Yeah, I said he was sick, but it did seem like he was poisoned because he was like drinking something and
I
then
also thought it
keeled
was
over.
poison, but I was wondering if it was the cigarettes that the KGB guy left him.
Oh. Well,
I mean,
maybe. Do say later that they poisoned it, but they didn't say
oh,
how.
did they? I missed that they said that they poisoned him.
Oh yeah, we'll get to it when we get to
Okay.
it, I guess.
All right. So yeah, he looks like he has a heart attack or something, and then we get the U-2 flight over Cuba as it's taking photos.
Yeah, so I guess the world didn't stop spinning just because Greville was taken off the case.
Oh, yeah. So Alex's family goes to visit him in the hospital, and they say that they need to keep him there a few days. The wife goes and talks to him by themselves and reveals that she's pregnant, which I called as soon as she said, I didn't want to tell you before. It's like, oh, yeah, no, she's definitely pregnant.
What else was she gonna say? It's not like she knows anything else of interest.
Ah. And then we cut to Greville, along with like pretty much everyone else, either watching or listening to the JFK speech, which did 13 Days have this speech? I'm pretty sure, right?
Yeah, because I remember talking about how he goes as an attack.
An attack.
I mean,
You
I'm
know what?
exaggerating it a little bit.
I'm surprised that we haven't had more accents in this episode because of all the Russians. But I guess I haven't really attempted it yet.
I know better than to try to do a Russian accent. Thank you.
Oh man! But I feel like wasn't the same speech in X-Men First Class? Isn't it what they're watching it on TV too? They're watching a
Probably.
JFK speech. I don't remember if it was this one.
Yeah, it was Cuban Missile Crisis speech that
Yeah.
everyone knows.
Yeah, I think it was this. Anyway, so Alex, after a meeting, is told that he's not required to attend the London Trade Fair anymore. The minister, as in Khrushchev, says that his other work is too important. So, there's your alarm, your red flags raised.
Seriously.
The CIA calls Emily and says, the Russians aren't backing down, and either with the Americans. It's out of our hands now.
Yeah. So basically, Greville is notified that they want to get Oleg out, but they can't get him out. So they're like, what are we going to do? Are we going to leave him behind?
Yeah,
what's
so
the rest?
they said there's basically, they said that he even brings up the point that you told him that whenever he wanted out, he could get out. He's like, yeah, but we would a family trip to Berlin and then get them across the wall. We wouldn't try to pull them out in the middle of Moscow.
Well, they say later that if they could get him out of Moscow, they're good to go. But I guess at the time, they're like, it's too dangerous.
I mean, that's like, think of like someone being extracted from Washington, D.C. Like that, it would be, fingers crossed, an impossibility to have that done.
Well, one would hope, yes. But then Greville says a Michael Burnham line.
Oh?
He says, there is a way to get him out. Me. Which, for those of you who've seen Star Trek Discovery, Michael Burnham says some variation of that, like 4 or 5 times.
Maybe a slight exaggeration, but you know what? I'm once you said it that way, I was like, okay, I can kind of see it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they all try to make the point that if Greville was in this situation, Alex would abandon him. He's like, no, you guys may have spied with him, but I've gotten to know the man. I've spent much more time with you than you have, and he would never abandon me. And so I'm going to go in and I'm going to get him.
I'm going to go back and tell him, which I was kind of like, why didn't they just use some other British businessman? Because then Oleg wouldn't trust them.
Yeah, how does he know that they're not turned? I mean, it's the balance between, this isn't even just going beyond like these two, but just like usually, a source and an officer build that trust in that relationship. And it's tough when you have to have someone else take over that contact.
I see.
But yeah, so Greville says he's going to go in, and Emily says she'll go with him. But James brings up the very important point that she'll have diplomatic immunity. She's at no risk to herself.
Yeah.
And James begs Greville, don't do this. This is not a good call.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
But Greville is going to do it. And his wife catches him packing. And he's like, I just have one last account in Moscow to close. And like, all right, well, what about tonight? Where are you staying? I think a hotel would be best. Ooh. Her last words to him before everything goes down.
Mm-hmm.
Yikes. So he gets to Moscow, meets with Alex, and they go to his hotel room. And before they can talk, I like this. Alex turns on a radio really loud, and they whisper very close to one another. So even if the room was bugged, it'd be very hard to discern what they were saying.
Though it is a little suspicious. You hear a door open, and then you hear the radio go on. I mean, I don't know, whatever.
Yeah. Emily goes to Moscow as well, and then she goes to the U.S. Embassy and tells the CIA person at the embassy what the plan is to get Alex and his family out.
Yeah, they have this whole plan to go through Finland, basically.
Yeah. Everyone's watching this UN meeting. This is probably the same one from 14 Days, where it's like, don't wait for the translation.
Yeah, I had to look it up. It was Adlai Stevenson who did that.
That's right. Yes, yes.
But that's right.
So I assume that was that same one, right?
Yeah, it is. Greville was watching it in the U.S. Embassy, and I was like, why is he in the U.S. Embassy?
I thought about that. I was like, that seems suspicious.
It's just strange, yeah.
Like,
but
especially
whatever.
if they're watching him. Maybe that's what gave him away.
But then he communicates the message that Oleg is ready to Emily with a magnetic notepad. It's like a children's toy.
I couldn't remember what it was called, but yeah, I was like, what? That's great.
I didn't think it had a specific name.
But like, it's those things where you have the film of paper and you write on it, and then you like lift it up, and then the message just goes away.
Yeah, or you like shake it or something like that. That's funny.
You know, that's pretty clever because, you know, there's literally no trace of it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the message is that he's ready. Greville goes to see Alex. They go to a ballet. I believe this was Swan Lake.
Well, the music certainly sounded familiar.
Yeah. And so they actually show the ballet this time, which was like, because you know, they hyped it up so much the last time it's the Russian ballet. So, and seeing them perform, they looked pretty good.
Yeah.
As they're watching the ballet, you know, they're getting very emotional because they know that time is up. And Alex is having flashbacks of like where he's hiding the photographs that he's took.
Yep.
So Greville and Alex are getting ready to perform the operation. Emily's briefed on the U.S.'s plan that, you know, if they remove the nukes from Turkey, the Russians will stand down. Alex takes Greville to the airport. The CIA agent at the embassy causes his diversion, gets a bunch of KGB guys to run after him. Emily goes inside a bookshop, does a quick change, and Greville gets on the plane. And they're about to take off, but then there's a delay.
Yes.
And Alex goes back to his house, tells his family, "Get ready, we need to go." And of course, the KGB's there.
Yeah, I know.
Damn
it was crazy. I did not know what was going to happen, so this part was really effective.
As this was going on, I was like, I could just look up what happened to them. But no, I want to see this play out because I really don't know what happened.
Yeah, so you think that Greville's good, but then they come up to him and they're like, get off the plane. So you're like, crap. And then you think Emily's good, but then she gets arrested too. Yeah,
and then back at Alex's house, the KGB makes him tell his wife that he's a traitor.
Yes.
And they reveal that they searched his home when he was in the hospital. So is this where they said they poisoned him? I missed that.
Yes, they literally say...
I believe you. I just missed it. Yeah.
Yeah, they say, we had you poisoned and then searched the house because we knew you weren't going to be around.
Oh, jeez. But yeah, so Emily gets declared persona non grata, and she has to leave in 24 hours. So I've always wondered, when you get declared persona non grata, do they have to put you out on a special flight, or they just let you fly on a regular commercial flight out? How did they get you out of there?
I think it's your problem.
Okay. Also, I'm just a little surprised that he gave you 24 hours and not just get on a plane immediately.
Oh, come on. They're not unreasonable. They may be evil dictators, but they know people need time to get their travel plans.
It's the Soviet government. Greville gets taken to a Soviet prison, and they force him to strip, and they shave his head and his mustache off. He gets interrogated and then taken to his cell. And I was impressed. Once he gets to his cell, he just starts doing push-ups. It's like, wow, that's your first impulse? That would not have been my first impulse.
Yeah, I guess he knows he's going to be in there for a while.
So he just needs to do something to keep fit and keep his strength up.
Yeah, he says at some point, we had to try.
Yeah. No, that was not him. That was James.
Oh, it was James, yeah.
Yeah, so actually Emily goes to see James, and they both say that, it's like, you were right. Is it, no, you were right. Is it, we had to try.
Yeah, I like that.
They go and see Greville's wife and tell her that Greville was arrested. They're trying to keep up the cover that, this is all nonsense, but she, sees right through it and figures it out.
Yeah, they barely softball it, though.
Yeah.
They're like, he's in trouble. And we can't say why. Wink, wink.
So as this is going on, Emily talks to Sheila and says that, all right, yes, okay, you know the truth. But when you talk to anyone about this, you have to play it like that is complete nonsense. Because if anyone finds out that it is, they're going to treat him much harsher. As long as they keep thinking that he's just a courier and not a spy, then he's fine. He might be in there and he might be physically tortured, but he'll be alive.
Yeah, but in the next scene, that's sort of undermined because the Soviets say they basically know everything.
They say that, but I mean, that's classic interrogation. You tell them that you know everything already, so just tell us, so they don't feel like they have anything else left to hide.
Yeah, but they say stuff that they know, which is all correct.
Like what? I've refreshed my memory.
Well, I don't have it written down, but it's things like Penkovsky would give you stuff and then you'd take it to the UK.
Right, and that's all fun. Like basically, as long as he keeps up this facade that he didn't know what was in those packages, they won't kill him.
Yeah,
As
he
long
denies
as he's
everything.
playing it as, I was just doing this, and like, yes, he did something. Yes, he was involved, but if he didn't know anything, then he can't. It'll be much easier for him.
Yeah, he plays dumb, but his motivation while playing dumb makes sense. He's like, they paid me, and that's all I care about.
Yeah. He goes to that stereotype of the greedy capitalist. Or he says, like, they're my clients. Of course, I'm going to do things to make them like me. If that means that he needed me to drop off a package in the UK, I would do it.
Yeah, a favor for a client.
Yeah, but I was very impressed how he kept his composure during this time.
Yeah.
But you also see like a scene of him like enduring the Soviet winter. Like there's a hole in a window that he tries to like patch up with just some like cloth or something.
Yep.
He's still doing his push-ups, but he's getting weaker. And like during some of the interrogations, they try to like tempt him with food, but he doesn't give in.
Yeah, it's food combined with a signed confession letter.
Yep. And then one of Sheila's friends comes by to see her, and Sheila does a pretty good job of like convincing her friend that this is completely preposterous. She says like, Greville could even hide his affair from me. You think he's stealing state secrets?
Yeah, it's like a Marvelous Mrs. Maisel bet. Like, my husband's an idiot. He can't be a spy. Funny when she's like, okay, nice talking to you. Goodbye.
Yes. So Greville is, interrogated again, and then like is brought back to his cell. And this time he just has a breakdown. And like throws stuff at the like little people they have.
Yep.
So they win and beat him. And then we cut to 6 months later.
Yeah, 6 months from who knows when to who knows when, but it's 6 months later.
I mean, it's 6 months, like right on the eve of the Cuban Missile Crisis. So what? That was October. So November, December, January, February, March, April. Yeah,
presumably, yeah.
But Sheila actually comes to see Greville in the Russian prison, and he looks gaunt. He's like lost a lot of weight. He's basically like skin over a skeleton at this point.
Yeah, he looks like Gollum.
It was like interesting as he's saying this. He says not to blame the Russians.
Yeah. So wait.
Yeah, what was with that?
That was interesting because it made me think like maybe they turned him.
That's what I was about to get to. It's like I was a little afraid that they got to him, they turned him, and
right.
Yeah.
But then I'm like, well, he was not very political, really.
No. I mean, he even says it himself. I just stay out of the politics. Everyone needs materials.
Because he served his country, but the idea that he was preventing a nuclear war, really, as we discussed, that's what convinced him to finally take the plunge.
Yeah.
So
Sheila says to him that the foreign office says that it's a good sign that they actually allowed her to visit, and that he asks about Cuba at one point, and she reveals a little. It says that they've backed down.
Yes, the missiles were removed. He did it! Yay!
But then the guard stops it. No more talk of this. No more talk of this.
Stop talking about this. Which I thought was funny. You don't usually hear guards say stuff in these prison movies, so.
Oh, they also he also said that you guys no touching.
Yes.
And before this scene ends, she does tell him that it could take a while still to get him out, maybe another year. And I actually like this where he he doesn't want to talk about anything else. He just tell me about home. What am I missing? And she talks about the guard and everything, and it definitely feels like that gets his spirits up a little bit more. And then our spy trio, the two Brits and Emily, meet, and the Brits make the point that they can't offer anyone of high value because it sends a message that Greville was actually, a spy.
Yeah, I didn't like this. I felt like the emotional climax of the movie was when they got arrested. So I was like, we don't want more conflict. Like, are we going to have to deal with the whole getting him out?
I appreciated the point of that because I was just like, all right, why don't they just trade a spy for him? Something. I was actually thinking about this. So I appreciated that they made that make sense.
Well, that's what they ended up doing. So then why have them talk about
but it wasn't a high value spy. And also, I like that the point that Emily brings up where she says that if he dies in there, no one will ever trust MI6 to keep them safe. No spy will ever come forward to work for you because they know that you won't keep them safe.
Yeah, well, even if he doesn't die, it's like you work for MI6, you end up in a gulag. It's not a whole lot better.
So now we get to the big emotional scene.
Yes.
Greville is being interrogated yet again, and then they bring in Alex, and this is all like he's in like it's very well. It's not well lit, so like the only light is on Greville, and so Alex is sort of in the darkness. But he says that I haven't seen a mirror in a long time, but so I may not look like you remember me, but you can tell from the voice that it's Alex.
Yep.
Alex like apologizes and is like, "I'm sorry for what I had to do. I had to protect my family." So of course I told them that I gave them that I used you to send the photos that the KGB that the Americans used to find the missiles in Cuba, and of course I told them that you knew nothing about what was in the packages. It's like, oh, so he kept that up. So he protected Greville. I was like, wow.
Just like Greville knew he would. That's so nice.
And he's like, and I'm sorry that it was all for nothing. And when he says that, of course, Greville's like, oh, wait, I know that they. And so Greville reveals to Alex that Khrushchev is withdrawing the missiles from Cuba because of what they did. He actually saved the world.
And the Soviets do not like that.
No, so they're like, as he's like shouting, oh, it's because of you, Alex. It's because of you. They like pull him out of the room. But Alex, knowing that what he did actually mattered, like he has like some silent manly tears.
Yeah.
And next we go to 1 year later. Greville is taken to probably his first shower in a year and a half.
Right.
He gets released in exchange for a Soviet spy, Conan Melody. And as he gets home, like reporters are swarming the door. And as he gets into his home and sees his home for the first time in a year and a half, he starts remembering like all his conversations with Alex and everything that Alex did, and just all remembering his final time he saw Alex.
Yeah. Did you buy this relationship between them, by the way?
I did, as a matter of fact.
Okay. And
so we next get a little card, like those end credit cards of. We find out that Greville actually resumed his business, but died peacefully in 1990. Penkovsky was executed and buried in an unmarked grave, but his family was allowed to live quietly in Moscow. But like together, they smuggled out over 5,000 secrets, and that Penkovsky was like the most valuable asset the West ever had. And after the Cold War, or after the Cuban Missile Crisis, they set up the hotline between the Kremlin and the White House so that we could never be brought to the brink of nuclear war again.
That's right.
And then we get some actual footage of Greville Wynne after he came back.
Yeah, and he seemed like the kind of person I would want to see more of. He's really nice.
I thought that Benedict Cumberbatch had like a good portrayal of him without being like an exact mimicry, but just gave it the overall feeling of him.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly what he said, but I remember being like, ooh.
Oh, well, actually talked. So it was an interview after he came back, and just and the question it was asking him, what are you going to do now? And he says, well, I would like to resume my business. So it was for the same company, with a little wink hinting like you would work for MI6.
Yeah.
No, for my company selling materials. And they said, would you ever go back to the Eastern Bloc to do sales? Like, well, that's a question I'm not prepared to answer right now.
Yeah, he was great.
Yeah.
And then apparently, this is jumping ahead to Spy Fact vs. Fiction. Yeah. He was on This Is Your Life, which is
really?
TV show where they have to guess who people are.
Yes. I'm trying to remember what movie I saw where they actually included. I think it was Catch Me If You Can. They have.
Yeah, that sounds right.
That guy. What's his face?
Frank something.
Frank Abagnale.
Yeah. All right, ready for Spy Fact versus Fiction?
Yes, let's get into it.
My sources were BBC on this day in 1963 about him being arrested, Wikipedia, and historyversushollywood.com, which I'm going to have to go back to later. So Penkovsky also gave his business card to two British businessmen when trying to recruit people. Greville was selected because he often traveled to Eastern Europe for work.
Okay, so that's accurate then, yeah.
Yeah, Penkovsky was motivated more by dislike of the Soviet system than a desire to prevent a nuclear war.
Okay.
Yeah. Angus Wright's character, MI6 Dickie Franks, was a real person who worked for the SIS, but didn't have anything to do with the recruitment of Greville Wynne.
Really? Oh, okay.
Yeah. There were reports that he had, but those turned out to be wrong. Emily is not a real person. She's an amalgamation.
Because of the Spy Museum, we were able to get a early view of this. And they also had a happy hour a spy museum, or what do they call them? I don't remember. But they had a interview with the director of the movie, and they talked about how Emily was, like that amalgamate. She was completely fiction, and it was actually two men who were on the CIA side who were running it. But I believe that the person who actually recruited Greville to do this was a woman. And so they wanted to make sure that there was that female representation in the movie, even if they had to, combine a few characters for that.
Very normal. No complaints there.
Yeah.
So there's no evidence that Greville had an affair in the past.
Oh, so that was just the...
Well, History versus Hollywood said it's likely he did, and I wonder where's that coming from?
Yeah.
In real life, Sheila divorced him after he was released from the Moscow prison.
Oh.
He married his second wife, Herma van Buren, in
Okay.
1970. She was his secretary.
Maybe that's who he had an affair with the first time.
Yeah, talk about a cliche. But then they separated several years prior to his death in 1990.
Oh, okay.
The movie revealed that top KGB officials knew that Penkovsky was a double agent for more than a year, but wanted to protect their source, which was a mole in MI6.
Oh, was this Kim Philby?
Yeah, I believe so.
Huh.
They waited to build up a case against him that didn't expose the mole. So the big emotional scene that you said, the prison meeting, is entirely fictional.
I knew that. Like I said, the Spy Museum had their thing, and they revealed that probably a farce, but they would have seen each other at the trial. Yeah.
Oleg was executed by firing squad 1 week after the trial.
Yeah.
So he definitely was not alive 6 months later. Yeah. And then finally, Greville was arrested in Budapest. Penkovsky gave him up during interrogation.
Oh, so it wasn't...
thing,
interesting.
He pleaded guilty with certain reservations at the trial and was sentenced to 8 years in prison. He hugged his wife in a side room before going back to prison. So his wife was at the trial.
Okay.
And he wrote 2 books later about his experience. And that is it for Spy Fact versus Fiction.
All right. Now we move on to our favorite quotes. Do you have a few?
Yeah, I do. So when they're talking about the Cuban Missile Crisis, somebody says, "It's out of our hands. Anything could happen," which I liked. And then another one, when they're trying to get Greville to be a courier for the first time, someone says, "We believe the risk to you is minimal and we'll pay you." So I like that.
All right. So I'm not going to go into this whole thing, but I liked his usual spiel. He says about how, I'm just here to listen. And if you tell me what your problems are, and if I have a client that may have a solution, let's talk it through. If not, let's keep drinking.
Nah.
And I also like when Greville, when he meets James and Emily at the hotel bar, he says, "James, I know you said you had an office at the Board of Trade, but is it possible you work for a different branch of Her Majesty's government?"
Nothing gets past him.
Yeah. And I also like James, who says, when they're trying to get him to go, he says, "If this mission was the least bit dangerous, you really are the last man we'd send." It's ouch.
Yeah, because he was old and out of shape, they said.
He was in the war as a private, but never saw any combat.
Yeah, but I'm is he really the last man? Yeah. I could think of some worse ones, but okay.
And final quote. Now, most important question. If you want to do business in Moscow, I need to know, can you hold your alcohol?
Yeah, he says that a couple times, right?
Yeah. No, just the once, but it was enough that it made me laugh. Because, of course, Russians love drinking vodka. Actually, I do my best Russian accents when I'm drinking a shot of vodka.
Lots of actors like using props to help them get in character, so that makes sense.
Alrighty.
All right, now it's time for our ratings on a scale of 1 to 10 martinis. Not vodka martinis necessarily.
So maybe gin, yeah.
1 being the worst spy movie. For example, the worst one we've seen so far is The Avengers 1997, and 10 being the greatest spy movie, even better than Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol. How would we rate The Courier? I can go first.
Okay.
So when I saw the advertisement and the trailer for this movie, I was like, this looks generic. It looks boring. It looks like something we've seen a million times before. Bridge of Spies mixed with 13 Days. But then once it looked like he was going to get exposed and they had to escape, things were starting to pick up. I'm not really an actor person.
Okay.
When an actor is acting, that doesn't really do much for me. But as the movie went on, I was getting more into it. I was like, yeah, this is on the better side of pretty good. So I am going to give it 7 out of 10 martini. Also, it had a Chubby Checker song, which always pushes up half the martini in it.
All right. So I like the trailers or any sort of marketing for this didn't really catch me. Like, all right, I enjoy Benedict Cumberbatch, so yeah, maybe and then once we got the invite from the Spy Museum, I was okay. Yeah, of course, I'll give this a watch. But as I got into it, I was really drawn into it, and I thought it was really well done. Even though like you said, some of the parts of it or even characters are more there to provide the feeling of it than actually being historically accurate. I thought it was really well done. I thought, like, the character Greville Wynne, like, I wasn't sure where he was gonna go. Like, when I first heard about this movie, The Courier, I thought it was the other way around, and he was gonna be like a spy for the KGB or something like that. And then seeing his Michael Burnham turn at that point where he says, "You guys are saying there's only one way to do it, but there is one way, me." And I was like, "Wow, all right, Greville's stepping up." I was impressed, and I really enjoyed it. So I'm actually gonna give this an 8 out of 10.
Great. Yeah, if you are into Benedict Cumberbatch, they would get a recommendation, but otherwise it's going to be hard to pick it out of a lineup. Would you say it's safe to say?
Oh, I mean, if you say it's a very good, solid, like, World War II spy movie, and especially if you are interested in if you really liked the Cuban Missile Crisis, and you want to learn about another aspect of it, I'd say this is your movie.
Yeah, if you want to know the Rogue One side story.
Exactly.
All right, thank you for joining us on the Spy-Fi Guys. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And please be sure to leave a good review. Until next time, I'm Zach.
And I'm Christian.
And we are the Spy-Fi Guys signing off.
Thank you for listening to the Spy-Fi Guys. If you enjoyed our podcast, please be sure to give us a 5-star rating on iTunes. The theme song from this podcast is Mistake the Getaway by Kevin MacLeod from Incompetech.com, licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0. Films, books, and television shows reviewed by our podcast are the intellectual property of their respective copyright holders, and no infringement is intended.
This is a personal podcast. Any views, statements, or opinions expressed in this podcast are personal and belong solely to the participants. They do not represent those of people, institutions, or organizations that the participants may or may not be associated with in a professional or personal capacity unless explicitly stated. Any views or opinions are not intended to malign any religion, ethnic group, club, organization, company, or individual.
You can find our podcast on social media at The Spy-Fi Guys on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.